Welcome back, my fellow degenerates. Yes, it has been a little bit, but we are back for week 14. Yeah, we had a little bit of travel around the holidays. We had some sickness I'm still dealing with, so it happens. But we're here and we're ready to get back in full swing for the playoffs. Yeah, believe it or not, the playoffs right around the corner, and we are here to help you make that playoff push. In this week's episode, I'll be doing a game preview of every matchup this week and weigh in on the start sit decisions that you guys are facing. I know there's a lot of stress this week to make the right choice to keep your chances alive for the season. So we're going to help you with that. I mean, everyone knows outside of the playoffs, this is easily the most important week of the fantasy football, and it's not the time to drop the ball. Anyways, that's about all I got. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, good luck in all of your fantasy football endeavors, unless you're in one of our leagues, because then luck ain't gonna save you. Peace.
In audio.
Welcome back, my fellow degenerates. It's week 14 and it's time to make the push. Yes, the playoff push. It's finally here. It's what we've been working towards all season. So, last week, the regular season, let's hope you already have your bye week set up, your playoff spot secured, or maybe at least you're making a playoff push. Otherwise, you might be already eliminated, which sucks. That being said, I kind of enjoy playing spoiler. That's some solace you can take in that is if you can upset one of your buddies and kick him out of the playoffs from the bottom of the standings, we still like to do that. So make sure to pay attention to the video, figure out who you want to start, and upset your league mates. But yes, so this video is going to be start sit, some game previews, who I like and who I dislike heading into week 14. Week 14, it's a very important week because we have a lot of buys. Six of the stronger fantasy teams are actually on buy this week. Going down the line, we have the Ravens, the Commanders, the Colts, the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Texans as well. So, some players on all of those teams, for the most part, are very fantasy important. So, it's going to be a hard week for some teams. Let's hope you're not relying on your bye week players too heavily this week. So, one thing I want to focus on this week too is some points, some point totals for the team. So I know a lot of people, my friends, and I've done this in the past for sure, is when I'm looking at setting my fantasy lineup, I just check the ESPN projection or the sleeper projection, or I look and see, oh, the Jalen Waddle's going against the Jets and the second best pass defense. I don't want to play him. Those really aren't entirely too accurate, and we don't like following those. So, what we do like following is the Vegas odds. Yes, the Vegas odds. I'm not a sports gambler, not at all, but they are right most of the time. They have to be making money. So, we need to follow what they say. With that information, we can kind of look at the team's projected point totals. And this is a good margin to look at for how offenses should be doing that week. It's not a foolproof plan, but it will be consistently more accurate than it is not. So, looking at week 14, the highest teams projected totals so far are the Eagles, the Lions, the Bengals, the Bucks, the Bills, the Vikings, and the Dolphins. So, if you have a player on those teams, you probably want to play them. So, versus the bottom of the barrel, which these aren't surprises to anyone, right? We all know these things, but it's just something to keep in check. As the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Browns, the Jets, and the Chargers are all projected for less than 20 total points as a team. Excuse me. Yeah, so with those 20 points less, we're not really likely to play someone on those teams, hopefully, if we can avoid it. Obviously, in deeper leagues or start 10 formats, like a lot of dynasty leagues, you don't really have a choice. All right, so let's move into the games this week, starting with a Thursday night game. We have the Packers taking on the Lions. I'm going to throw the team totals up here real quick, but I'm not going to go over them for every team. But this should be a very high scoring game, very exciting, one of the better Thursday night games of the season. Starting with the Lions, it's kind of the same guys we play every week. The Lions, you're going to start Monty, you're going to start Gibbs, you're going to start Amon Ra. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it's just straightforward. Those are your studs. You start them. JMO, I don't really like. That being said, there's some injuries to the Packers backfield in terms of Jair Alexander and some other guys banged up. So if you're desperate with the buy, I could see playing JMO, but I don't really want to rely on him. Then again, he could have a massive game, so we'll see. And then moving over to the Packers side, I mean, Josh Jacobs tearing it up this year. You have to play him. Detroit is also a little bit banged up. So I still like him, even though they have a much better defense. And then for the wide receivers, oh God, this wide receiver room is so difficult every week. It's kind of like throwing darts. I do like Jaden Reed the most easily. I don't think it's any question. I don't think anyone's really going to dispute that Jaden Reed's the number one there. That being said, though, it could be any of them. Romeo Dobbs should be back from his concussion, so he will eat into some of those targets. So I prefer Dobbs over Christian Watson if you have the choice. Probably not playing Watson or Dontavian Wicks for sure, but that's about all we got in that game. Tucker Craft is a maybe. Same with Sam Laporta. They're just so hit or miss. Some weeks they're great, some weeks they're awful. So moving on to Sunday's slate of games. The first game we have is an absolute turd fest. It's the Jags taking on the Titans. For those who haven't seen, Trevor Lawrence has been moved to the IR, so he's out the rest of the season. And you know what this means is we have Mac Jones. Unfortunate for every fantasy player on the Jags, as Mac Jones is not looking too hot. So we're not starting any running backs from the Jaguars team. And the only player we can really start on the Jags for the rest of the season is Brian Thomas Jr. At this point, Mac Jones, he's not trying to be too smart. So he could air the ball out a good amount. That being said, though, he is going to overthrow Brian Thomas Jr. for sure when he's wide open. It happened a couple times last week. It could have been a legacy game for him already, but yeah. If you play Brian Thomas Jr., I wouldn't advise watching the game. Moving over to the Titans, who are equally garbage. They have 3 wins on the year. I do like Tony Pollard this week, just in terms of the volume, the usage, and as well, we'll move over to the wide receiver room. I guess we're going with Calvin Ridley. We're going to start him, but that's solely just based on he's on the field 100% of the plays. Um, he's been kind of underwhelming the last few weeks, but I think this could take a change here. And the only other player that's interesting on the Titans, and I don't even know if I want to say interesting, is he's just leads the league, or not leads the league. He's number 4 in the league in receiving touchdowns. Is good old Westbrook Akine. He's got 8 touchdowns on the season. He's more than so many of the top studs. So I think this has to stop at some point, but that's what I thought going into last week, and that clearly wasn't the case. So, for all we know, maybe he scores another touchdown. He passes Terry McLaurin into 3rd in the league. Yeah, we'll see. All right. Next game is the Dolphins taking on the Jets. Yes, it's the dreaded Dolphins in December. That being said, though, the game is in Miami, so it's warmer, and the team total is projected for 25.25 points, which is good news. That's a good number. We like that. So we are looking to start a lot of Dolphins this week. Obvious A-Chain, he's one of the top running backs in the league. So much reception usage. He seems like a cheat code this year. So you're starting A-Chain for sure. No one else was interesting on that team. And then the Jets, their running back room, there's different reports. Brees hasn't been practicing. He's a little bit banged up. I would just make sure to keep checking those practice reports. If Brees plays, I would play him. He's just got so much upside. He gets all the usage out of the backfield normally, but he could split some time with Braylon Allen this week, who's also banged up a little. It's just, I don't know. It's a clusterfuck, that whole team. So moving over to the wide receivers, we got Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson as the interesting pieces on the Jets. At this point, I kind of like Devontae rest of season more than Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's still getting a lot of targets, but it just seems like Devontae is getting fed so many passes. I don't know what it is. I don't really like either of them, but they're still good enough to get you some points. If I had to guess, Devontae will have more points than Wilson. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised either way the outcome. And then moving over to Miami, God, Miami, this team is I have a lot of Miami players among my teams after last season, and it's been very frustrating. But we're gonna roll with Tyreek Hill this week. You have to. I mean, it's Tyreek. There's no question, right? And I'm actually gonna roll Jalen Waddle back out there. I don't think this Johnny Smith, as exciting as it is, and he seems like a league winner, I don't think Johnny Smith keeps this up. It's just too ridiculous. Yeah, I think Jonnu comes back to reality. He scores much less, and Waddle kind of gets more involved in the passing game. Um, Totally not a biased Waddle owner position. So, all right. Moving on. Next game we have is the Falcons versus the Vikings. Vikings projected 25.75, Falcons 20.25. Running back room, straightforward. Once again, you're starting Bijan, no question, absolute locked and loaded stud. So much receiving upside. We like that. And then honestly, I don't like Aaron Jones this week. I wouldn't play him if I had the choice. If you have to, it's okay. But these past few weeks, we've been seeing more involvement from Cam Akers. And that's just not good for Aaron Jones. At the beginning of the year, his upside was he was getting 100% of the volume. And if that's no longer the case, it's kind of scary. That being said, we had the same thing happen 3 weeks ago where he went to having just 50% of the usage. And then the following week, he was back to 100%. So um, we'll see. I'm not too confident in him though, with Cam Akers just having more time there. And then moving over to the wide receiver rooms here, obviously you start Justin Jefferson. Pretty much no one else on that Vikings team I like though. Addison's had some good games, but I don't think it stays consistent. And then I don't know with the Falcons. They're going to be most likely behind, so they'll be throwing the ball a lot. But good lord, Kirk Cousins is having a brutal stretch here. I mean, everybody's heard it at this point. He said 0 TDs and I think 6 interceptions or something like that in the past 3 games, something like that. So I imagine Drake London's got to get some targets, but I don't know. If anything, this makes me excited for Michael Penix next year. So let the man, let the man get his chance. And then moving on, another turd. Oh, there's a lot of good games this week, but there's also some terrible games. So we got the Saints playing the Giants. Looks like Drew Lock will be the starter this week. Um, Not that that's good for anyone. And then the Saints, we like Alvin Kamara. Obviously, he's got so much receptions or receiving usage, pretty much all of the volume out of the backfield. And then I'm actually benching Tyrone Tracy this week. This running back room looks like it's turning into a committee now with Singletary more weeks off the injury. And being a committee running back on one of the worst offenses in the NFL, I know Tracy had his bright moments. I don't think that continues though. That just the team is so bad, especially with Drew Lock at quarterback. Um, and then moving over to wide receiver, this game is barren for wide receivers. I guess you play Malik Neighbors if you have him, but I wouldn't expect a lot of upside. I mean, it's Drew Lock. And then MVS is kind of a sneaky play here. It's so wild to say, but MVS is just he looks good and he's like one of the only healthy receivers. So I don't mind actually playing MVS in my flex this week. It feels really wrong to say that, to be honest, but we're gonna roll with MVS. Um, Another terrible game following that is Bryce Young is coming back to earth and he's going to get absolutely dumpstered by the Eagles. Um, their team total projected is 16.75 by the Panthers to 29.25 by the Eagles. It's by far the biggest spread of the week with the highest and the lowest teams in this game. So obviously with the Eagles, you're rolling Saquon out there. Absolute cheat code. He's averaging 27 fantasy points per game over the last 5 weeks. Just insane. And then Jonathan Brooks did get some playtime last week. He actually looked pretty good in some moments, but we're not rolling him out versus the Eagles. Same with Chuba Hubbard now. He had the fumble last week, got a little bit banged up, but I think they're both kind of unplayable for the rest of the season, but especially this week. In terms of the wide receiver room, the only wide receiver in this game that I want to play is AJ Brown. Obviously, AJ Brown, superstar, very good. But Devonta Smith, I don't really like in this matchup. I think they're going to run the ball a lot, and outside of like a few big plays from AJ Brown, I don't think he's going to get a ton coming off that injury, especially they don't need to like force him back. So I think he's going to play, but I don't think they're going to risk it too much. And then in terms of Carolina, I do have Thielen that I am going to play in one of my leagues, but it is a start five wide receiver league. So barring any formats like that, I don't like anyone here. Um, I'm not playing like that. I'm not playing more. So yeah, unfortunately for Bryce as well, I think this is going to be a tough game, but I wouldn't jump to any conclusions as a Bryce Young. If you're a Bryce Young fan, I wouldn't be sad after a poor performance this week. Um, Moving on to an AFC North battle here with Hard Knocks starting off this week is Cleveland is going to Pittsburgh to take them on. Pittsburgh, obviously projected to win. This is kind of a tough game to predict, right? Because Jameis has really been throwing the ball so much, and Nick Chubb has kind of fallen to the side. He has had some touchdowns the last few weeks, but personally, I'm not going to start Nick Chubb. I'm also not going to start Jalen Warren. I think Najee's here to stay. He had a lot of passing involvement last week. We like to see that. So I'm starting Najee. I'm benching Chubb. I'm benching Warren. Um, Moving over to the wide receiver position, we had Jerry Judy go absolutely nuclear last week. If you played him, you most likely won. Um, that being said, I don't really like any wide receiver in this game. Obviously, Pickens is going to get his yards, but Russell Wilson threw for 400 yards last week, and Pickens only had 16 fantasy full PPR points. So he's kind of underwhelming. And then Jerry Judy, obviously great, but Cedric Tillman should be back this week. So the Judy, Tillman, Moore, and Joku quad of all the players getting 10 plus targets every game. I don't know. I think one of them will do well. I don't think it's a lock that it's Judy. I'm not saying like Tillman's great by any means, but it's just the ball gets spread out there. So I'm fine with playing them, but I'm not ecstatic. I don't expect anywhere near the performance Judy's been having lately. Um, all right, moving on to the Raiders visiting the Buccaneers. Buccaneers projected for 26 points, Raiders 20. Yeah, man, the Raiders are brutal right now with the injuries. It looks like Aiden O'Connell once again. Then again, there's reports that he's injured too, so we could have Desmond Ritter, and I honestly don't know which one's worse. Aiden O'Connell did have a couple nice balls to Brock Bowers last week, but yeah, I'm not excited for him. Um, it looks like Sincere McCormick's now the lead back there. He's just a total nothing play. We don't like that. And then Bucky Irving, I'm fine with rolling him out. Or I'm not fine. I'm more than fine with rolling him out. His usage is so good. That being said, I could see the Bucks getting ahead early and then just rotating series between the backs, whether it's Bucky, Rashad, or Sean Tucker even. So I could see the ceiling get capped a little bit. Moving over to the wide receiver position, Mike Evans is a little bit banged up this week through practice. That being said, if he does play, he's a must start. There's no competition. I'm not playing any other receiver there, whether it's Sterling Shepard or Jalen McMillan. And then for the Raiders, Jacoby Myers is actually silently putting on like quite a nice campaign right here. The last 5 weeks, he's averaging 16 and a half points per game in full PPR. So we like Jacoby a lot of target share, but obviously Brock Bowers, but every other wide receiver player on this team, unplayable. Don't trick yourself into playing them. Moving on to our next game, we have NFC West battle between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. This game should be pretty close. Seahawks are projected for 21, Cardinals 23. These defenses are playing a little bit better than expected, but they're still both not great. I like both the running backs in this matchup. Kenneth Walker, although he has been dealing with a lot of injuries, his receiving upside's just been really good these past few weeks, so I'm not too worried. And then James Conner as well. I think he'll have a decent stretch here. So I'm starting both of them. Neither of the backups, Charbonnet or Trey Benson, I'm playing at all. And moving over to the wide receiver room, Marvin Harrison Jr. did get in the end zone last week. I think you can play him again. he's not too exciting, right? Everyone's kind of saying he's like a bust or underwhelming. I don't think that's the case. He's still having a good year, but it's not the level that we expected. And then personally, I'm playing DK over JSN, and it's no question. DK's still getting he's still been banged up a little bit. He's still getting the most targets on the team. JSN only had 4 targets last week. Granted, he caught them all, but I'm liking DK. I'm still playing both of them, no question. I'm more confident in DK, though. Um, let's see. Moving on. This game is actually one of my favorite games this week. Is the Bills taking on the Rams? And the good note is it's going to be in Los Angeles, so there's no snow, there's no inclement weather, so should be a high scoring game. Um, Bills at 26 and a quarter, Rams at 22 and three quarters. So both the running backs, James Cook, Kyron, you're rolling out there with confidence. James Cook's passing involvement these past few weeks just so good. And Kyron, obviously, no passing involvement, complete opposite. He's been pretty touchdown event dependent, and they've been throwing the ball a lot in the red zone. But I'm not too worried. I'm still playing him. You don't really have a choice with Kyron. You have to play him. Moving over to the wide receivers, Puka and Cup, no question, both studs, rolling them out there. They both look amazing. And honestly, these Bills wide receivers, I'm not playing any of them. It's just so bad until seeing how things shake out. It's working out really well, NFL wise, but in terms of fantasy, like it's just such a crapshoot, and none of them are really doing that well. It seems like Shakir's the safest one, but his upside's like 10 points now. Um, yeah, so same with Kincaid as well. Just there's no one exciting here. Um, so it's just the running backs and the Rams receivers in this game. I'm sure one of the Bills guys will go off, but in terms of projecting who it is, there's no seeing. Our next game of the week is the Bears taking on the Niners. Um, Big news, obviously. Niners was CMC going down, and now Jordan Mason to the IR as well. So the big waiver wire of the peak pickup of the week was Guerrero. Every league in my league, if there was Fab available, he went for the full Fab price. Obviously, I understand it. Um, I think he's going to have a good week. I don't think he's like anything special per se, but obviously it's the team, it's the system. I think Brock's going to have a decent week, so I hope things work better for that offense. um, Moving on to the Bears side in the backfield, DeAndre Swift. I think the Bears are going to be playing from behind this game. I don't think Swift's going to have a ton of involvement, so I'm benching DeAndre Swift. And in terms of the wide receiver room, the Bears wide receivers are so fluky. I know DJ Moore and Keenan Allen have had 2 great games recently, but I don't think that's the norm. I think the Bears are going to struggle a lot this week. I think they take their slow start team, and if they don't get bailed at the end by some like late game touchdowns, they're just almost unplayable. So I'm not liking playing any of them, but if you have to, I'd rank them more Allen than Rome. And moving over to the Niners side, oh, I'm just praying. I'm just putting up a prayer. Please let Debo have a game. I have so many Debo shares, and I need something from him, especially with no CMC, no Mason. Ricky Pearsall's an absolute ghost. No targets the last 3 weeks, so it's really just Debo, Kittle, and Jennings. Um, I like playing all 3 of those guys. So personally, I want Debo to perform, but we'll see. Um, and then another one of the most hyped matchups of the week is we have the Chargers visiting the Chiefs. Kansas City 23 and a quarter projected, Chargers 19 and three quarters projected. In terms of running backs this game, I don't really like anyone. I think Pacheco came back and he's still banged up. I don't know about banged up, but it's coming back from a broken leg is not an easy thing to do. So obviously J.K. Dobbins is on the IR. So Gus, Edwards, and Kamani Vidal are over there. Yeah, I don't like playing any of these running backs here. Both these defenses are very good. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone had a game, but it's just not looking good. And then also for the wide receivers in this game, the only one I want to start is Lad. That's solely just based on Justin Herbert has to throw someone the ball. But the other wide receivers in LA are disgusting. And then everyone on the Chiefs outside of Kelsey is just like a total nothing. You can't play any of them. So, or I guess Noah Gray, but I wouldn't expect anything from him this game. He's just going to be such a random popcorn hit where it's either a huge game or nothing at all. So, and then moving on to Cincinnati visiting the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. This game's going to be awful. I think the Bengals one of the highest projected with 27.5 points this week. Cowboys do have 22, so it's not complete bottom of the barrel. Cooper Rush is looking a little bit better, which is good news for CeeDee Lamb. Um, Rico Dowdle had quite a good game last week. I think Rico still kind of is a sneaky, all right play, just in terms of he gets the full workload there. No, Zeke's not getting anything anymore. The Dalvin Cook experiment didn't work out, so he's much like the counterpart to him in this game, Chase Brown, where he gets the entire workload in the backfield. So I'm playing Rico if I need to. Not too worried. And then Chase Brown is a strong, very strong start. He could have top 5 upside this week and rest of the season, so we like that. And then in terms of the wide receivers, this game, it's just the 3 big name wide receivers. We like them all. Is obviously Chase, obviously T, and CeeDee Lamb. I'm not worried about any of them. I think they all do very well this game. Um, and yeah, so that's all the games we have this week. My closing thoughts is if you're not locked in yet to the playoffs, I think this is the time where you need to take the risks. Much like the trade deadline, is you need to take risks. You can't go out not swinging and just go sad and die slowly. So if you got a player like MVS on your bench, he's so much upside being the only target in that offense. You've got to play him. So you got to take some risks to get the rewards. So another thing is most of your leagues tiebreakers are in points, so you really need to go big this last week. So, anyways, that's all I got in this video. So, good luck in week 14, and we'll see you guys next week for the playoff preview. Peace.